Have you ever wondered what life was like 4.7 million years ago? It's hard to fathom the kind of world that existed so long before today. But if we travel back in time to this period, we might be surprised at some of the things that we discover. For example, how did prehistoric humans even sustain life? What kinds of animals were around them? And how did they survive all those millions of years ago? Well, let's find out. What life was like 4.7 million years ago. Life on Earth is constantly evolving and changing. From the dinosaurs that roamed the planet millions of years ago to the mammals that took over after their extinction, there has always been something new happening in the world of the living. 4.7 million years ago, our planet was a very different place than it is today. The climate was warmer, the sea levels were higher, and there was no ice at the poles. The continents were arranged differently as well, with Africa and South America closer together than they are now. During this time, the world was still recovering from the effects of the asteroid impact that had wiped out the dinosaurs. The mammals that had been around for millions of years finally had the chance to flourish, and new species began to emerge. Early hominins, the group that includes modern humans and their extinct relatives, were living in Africa during this period. They were small, ape-like creatures with human-like hands and feet. These early hominins were probably covered in hair and walked on two legs. They lived in groups and hunted for food using simple tools made of stone. They also gathered berries, fruits, and nuts. In addition to the early hominins, there were many other types of mammals living in Africa at the time. There were small proto-wombats called thylacoleo that looked like short-legged kangaroos. There were also large, thick-furred herbivores called anthracothers, which resembled a mix between a hippopotamus and a rhinoceros. Other mammals included the Moeritherium, an elephant-like creature with a trunk and tusks, and the Giraffumorix, a mammal that had the neck of a giraffe and the horns of a deer. There were also a variety of carnivorous mammals, including the Amphibian, a bear-like animal with powerful jaws and sharp teeth, and the Hyanailurus, a cat-like beast with huge claws and fangs. 4.7 million years ago was also a time when birds were beginning to diversify. There were all kinds of different species of birds living in Africa, including the ostrich-like Struthiocamelus, which could grow up to 9 feet tall. There were also smaller birds such as the honeyguide, which is still around today, and the secretary bird, which preys on snakes. In addition to these animals, there were also reptiles, amphibians, and fish living in Africa. The reptiles included crocodiles, turtles, and lizards, while the amphibians included frogs and toads. The fish were mostly small, but there were also larger predatory fish, such as the sea alacanth. The climate of Africa 4.7 million years ago was warm and humid, with plenty of rain. This made it a great place for plants to grow, and there were all kinds of lush vegetation, including forests, grasslands, and swamps. The forests were home to a variety of trees, including figs, acacias, and baobabs. The grasslands were full of grasses, herbs, and shrubs, while the swamps were home to a variety of aquatic plants. The environment of Africa 4.7 million years ago was very different from what it is today. The climate was much warmer and wetter, and there were no deserts. Instead, there were vast rainforests and swamps. The landscape was also much more mountainous, with the Ethiopian highlands reaching up to 16,000 feet. How prehistoric humans survived. Humans have been around for about 300,000 years. That means that for most of Earth's history, our planet has existed without us. But despite our relatively recent arrival, we've managed to become the dominant species on the planet. It's not easy being a human, especially in the prehistoric times when life was tough and the competition for resources was fierce. However, there are a few key factors that helped our ancestors survive and eventually thrive. One of the most important things that helped our ancestors survive was their ability to adapt to new environments. Humans are incredibly adaptable creatures and can live in a wide range of climates and environments. This adaptability allowed them to move into new areas as the climate changed or when resources became scarce. Another factor that helped our ancestors survive was their intelligence. Humans have the ability to think abstractly, plan ahead, and use language to communicate. These cognitive abilities allowed them to develop new technologies and strategies for hunting and gathering food, as well as for defending themselves against predators. Another key factor was the development of language. Language allowed humans to communicate more effectively, which helped them to coordinate activities, share knowledge, and build alliances. It also gave them the ability to pass down cultural information from one generation to the next. Humans also developed the ability to create and use tools. This allowed them to do things that were not possible before, like hunting larger animals or digging for roots and tubers. It also freed up their hands to carry objects and babies, making it easier to gather food and care for young children. Another factor that helped our ancestors survive was their social behavior. Humans lived in groups and cooperated in order to hunt, gather food, and defend themselves. This cooperation allowed them to take on larger prey, explore new territories, and care for their young. Finally, humans were able to survive because they were able to reproduce quickly. This allowed them to take over new areas and replace populations that were lost to disease, predation, or other causes. In conclusion, there are several factors that helped our ancestors survive. Their adaptability, intelligence, language skills, tool use, and social behavior all contributed to their success. As a result, humans were able to become the dominant species on Earth and spread to every corner of the planet. Some of the things that prehistoric humans did to survive include hunting wild animals, gathering wild plants, fishing, trapping animals, using fire, making weapons and tools, and living in groups. Hunting wild animals was an important part of the prehistoric human diet. They would use spears, bows, and arrows or traps to catch their prey. Some common animals that they hunted include deer, wild boar, and bison. Gathering wild plants was another important activity for prehistoric humans. They would collect fruits, nuts, berries, and roots to eat. This type of food was often easier to find and more nutritious than meat. Fishing was also an important source of protein for prehistoric humans. They would use spears, nets, or hooks to catch fish. Fish was a great source of nutrition and was often easier to catch than land animals. Prehistoric humans also used traps to catch animals. They would make snares or pitfall traps to catch small animals. Sometimes they would also use pits to trap larger animals, like wild boars or bison. Using fire was an important part of prehistoric human culture. Fire provided warmth and light, and it could also be used to cook food and make tools. Weapons and tools were essential for prehistoric humans. They used them to hunt animals, gather food, and protect themselves. Some common tools include stone knives, spears, and axes. Living in groups was also important for prehistoric humans. They could rely on each other for help with hunting and gathering food. They could also protect each other from predators. Overall, prehistoric humans had to work hard to survive. They had to find food, make tools, and protect themselves from predators. But they were able to do these things through their intelligence, adaptability, and creativity. In conclusion, life 4.7 million years ago was very different than it is today. The world was full of strange and wonderful creatures, and the environment was lush and tropical. Early hominins were just beginning to emerge, and they had to compete with a variety of other mammals for resources. To survive, they had to adapt to the changing environment, use their intelligence and social skills, and develop new technologies. While life may seem easy today, it wasn't always this way. The prehistoric humans of 4.7 million years ago had to work hard to survive, but they were able to do it through their ingenuity and determination.